Well, congratulations. You made it through the first 5 takeaway lessons for the World Citizen Alliance Certificate in Civility for Children and Youth. So there were 5 lessons there that we consider to be the foundational core messages that you need when you're teaching children and youth. And now we have a bonus lesson for you. In this day of technology with cell phones and so on, it would be important to touch on some of that basic communication. And so as a bonus, we have this lesson that is about the telephone etiquette. So a little bit of digital competence here. And as you know, or may know, this is part of the 21st Century Learning Competency roster for children. And so at some point, this might be a bonus lesson. It might be something that you give away for free or invite parents to. I think it works well for little children, but also older children. And there's all kinds of ways you can use this material as well. So I'm going to pull up the lesson here. And I'm going to move myself out of the screen. There we go. All right. So this one is about social rules for cell phones. And so if you've been following along, and we encourage you to read all the lessons and start with 1 and then go to 2, 3, 4, 5, because the lessons, the core message is scaffold actually. And with little kids, you could actually repeat the lessons. I would say once a month, especially the golden rule and the self-respect. But this lesson, the overall goal, is about introducing subtly this idea of social rules and guidelines for technology. So this is something that many children with the iPad and cell phones and electronic toys and whatever, they are introduced and actually well-versed in electronics and IT, AI even, as we get into 2030 here, by age 3 and 4. So this is not a lesson that is wasted by any means. I would suggest that for parents and teachers, especially cell phones, some of the general expectations should be taught by example, meaning that you lead by example, shutting the phone off when you engage with other people, keeping the volume low when you're in mixed company, putting the phone away when you're in places where it says no phone is allowed. Don't take pictures of people without permission. You know, some of those rules apply generally, and if you behave that way, children will learn it as they go. But there is still a need for some formal instruction as well. So there's all kinds of devices. You'd have to consider, for example, what are the children you're interacting with using. Maybe you want to focus on 1 or 2 tools, or else you can do sort of a general lesson. And so this is a way of helping children understand that there are rules for almost every social context, and there are consequences if we don't follow those rules. So one example is if you're in school, kindergarten, grade 1, and you're allowed a phone, and you don't put it away when you're told, or maybe you're not allowed a phone and you bring it with you, most often it'll be taken away temporarily. We have to know that there's consequences when we don't follow social rules. So in this lesson, again, some really good sources and resources, some books, some notes about safety. And this is why I said it's a good idea, if you're going to invite parents to a lesson, this might be the lesson that you invite them to. So this lesson talks about what the expectations are. You know, when do you use the phone? When do you not use a phone? We have an activity called situation slips to help sort proper and improper use of the cell phones. And then we have a cell phone sleuth handout. And some of this you can give for homework. I would say that if kids have phones, you know, let them bring them if you think they will not be distracted, or get fake plastic phones from the dollar store or the toy store and be able to use them as props and let children role play and practice some of the things we're going to talk to. Here's a situation slips where you can ask children, you can put them in a group if somebody's old enough to read, ask them to work through here and pick, you know, proper and improper, and to practice what they're gonna say, like which is proper, and let's practice it. And then you should explain the why for each of these rules. So proper to ask before I share or post a picture, improper to send embarrassing pictures, and why. Part of it you can express to children that it's illegal, in addition to it being unkind, right? That we want to be kept safe too, and there's privacy to consider. You know, there's quite a bit of content, and it's all in the script here if you need some supports. In this case, I think cell phone manners, time to talk. So this is interesting, right? Like, we want them to know that they talk during designated hours, you know, after a certain hour at night and before a certain hour in the morning, or maybe over dinner time. During school hours, there's particular times when we don't use our phones, and that's according to the rules of that situation. Texting, who can you text, and what kind of words or pictures can you use in texting? Who can you call, and who should you take calls from? This is about safety. How to use the camera, what's appropriate and what's not, even if it's selfies. You know, we should not be taking photographs in the bathroom, for example. Some of those rules that you think are obvious, we need to make sure that we're expressing it. This one, I think, it's really important that parents know what you're teaching their children, so I'm inclined to send home a tip sheet that says, here's what we talked about, right? Share that with them. Terms to know. The glossary of terms I mentioned is included at the beginning of the online course, but we can teach these terms to children as well. And, you know, we're going to ask the children to think about other ways to communicate. You know, if you could talk to somebody face to face, should you do that, or should we always pick up the phone? You know, talk about technology. You know, you could bring in an old-fashioned phone and an old-fashioned cell phone that used to be, you know, a foot long, and show those to children different ways. You can play games like when you hook up the paper cup to a string, or use a glass against a wall, like old technology tools just for fun, and show children different ways that we can interact and communicate and how technology has changed. You could, in fact, do a video call. You could arrange with the parents in advance that from our class today, your child is going to video call you just for a few minutes, just to show you what they're learning in class, and just so that they can see how the video works. We're going to talk about what's proper language on the phone, how to address people by their names, the usual proper greetings, proper way to say goodbye, not interrupting, all of those kind of social rules that go along with telephone. So there's a couple of activities here, as I mentioned. The cell phone sleuth. You can have the children take it home and pay attention to how other people are using their phones properly or improperly. And you can work with older children and put them with younger children. We can role play. You know, somebody's in a restaurant and one person's on their phone. What should the other person do or say? You're at a doctor's office, or you see somebody do something inappropriate. Someone took your picture and you didn't give them permission. You know, there's lots of problem solving and situations you could do here, depending on the age of the children that you are interacting with. So I hope you have fun with that lesson. There are advanced digital and AI lessons in other levels of the certification. You can reach out to us if you need some information. And if you have some tips and ways that you teach telephone etiquette to children, please make us a video, send it to us, and share it. We would love to see. Thank you.